RTX 5080 gaming laptops perform great in games, but is it worth spending even more money to get an RTX 5090 laptop instead? I've compared both in 25 games at 3 resolutions to find out if the 5090 is worth it. Both of these GPUs are based on Nvidia's GB203-400 die, but the higher tier RTX 5090 laptop GPU has 37% more CUDA, Tensor, and ray tracing cores compared to the lower tier RTX 5080 laptop GPU. The 5090 has 50% more VRAM capacity, but both GPUs have the same memory speed, memory bus, and memory bandwidth. According to Nvidia's specs, the 5080 can actually clock higher, which I suspect is because it's got fewer cores to power, yet they both have the same 175 watt maximum power limit. More power equals more performance. This graph shows the 3D Mark TimeSpy graphics score from each GPU at different power levels. With the same power limit, the 5090 in purple was always outperforming the 5080 in red, as expected. But a 5090 running at 130 watts starts to outperform a 5080 running at its full 175 watts. So technically, a 5080 laptop can do better in games than a 5090 laptop depending on the power limits. Depending on the laptop it's in, the 5080 can go as low as 80 watts, while the 5090 can't go below 95 watts. With both GPUs running at 95 watts, the 5090 laptop is scoring 17% higher than the 5080. But then with both maxed out at 175 watts, which is how I've done all the game testing, the 5090 was just under 14% faster than the 5080. I'm using XMG's Neo 16 laptops to do this comparison, and they're both exactly the same. So same CPU, same cooling, same RAM, same SSD, which means a perfectly fair comparison. Gaming laptops with 5080 or 5090 GPUs are not cheap, but if we find any good sales, we'll add them to the gaminglaptop.deals website. Check it out with the link below to save money on your next gaming laptop. There wasn't really much of a difference in terms of how much power both laptops were using across 3 different games. The 5090 laptop shown in purple was using slightly less power in 2 of the 3 games, but at the end of the day, these differences are only negligible. Both laptops were running their GPUs at around 170 watts, which is normal as the last 5 or so watts is at the mercy of Nvidia's dynamic boost algorithm. The 5090 laptop in purple ends up better from a performance per watt perspective, because as you're about to see in the 25 game comparison, the 5090 performs better in terms of FPS, but both use a similar amount of power. The 5090 laptop in purple was running a little cooler over these 3 games as well, but again, the difference is only minor. Just like Nvidia's spec sheet said, the 5080 laptop GPU shown in red was reaching higher clock speeds in all 3 games. Both GPUs are using about the same power, but the 5090 has more things like more CUDA cores to spread that power over. Both laptops have the same 99 watt-hour battery, but the higher tier 5090 laptop GPU actually lasted longer in a game. Alright, games next. Let's start out with Alan Wake 2, which had above average performance differences at all resolutions, with the 5090 laptop reaching a 17% higher average FPS at 1440p and 4K, though neither of them are running super well at 4K, at least without upscaling. With upscaling, we can even enable ray tracing and get better performance, with the 5090 laptop now passing 60 FPS at 4K, putting it 18% ahead of the 5080 laptop. But then on the other hand, games that are more CPU demanding and don't care so much about the GPU, like Baldur's Gate 3, were basically the same at 1080p and 1440p. The GPU does matter more at 4K though, where the 5090 was now 17% ahead of the 5080. Black Myth Wukong on the 5090 was just 13% faster compared to the 5080, so not really much of a difference. But the gap increases slightly to a 15% lead by the 5090 once we start using ray tracing and DLSS. Cyberpunk 2077 was also 15% faster on the 5090 at 1440p ultra settings, or 18% faster at 4K. Though with these sort of frame rates, you definitely want to add some DLSS in. DLSS allows us to use the even higher ray tracing ultra preset, with the 5090 laptop now surpassing 60 FPS at 4K, but it's only 13% faster than the 5080 here, which is one of the smallest differences seen at this resolution out of all 25 games tested. The Witcher 3 is an oldie, but hey, it's still getting DLC in 2026. And this game, on the other hand, had one of the bigger gaps between the two laptop GPUs, with the 5090 19% ahead of the 5080. The 5080 started choking at 4K, with far more dips in performance, as shown by its worst 1% low result. Instead of wasting your time individually talking through the rest of the 20 games tested, I'm just going to quickly skip through the rest of the results on screen now, so feel free to pause the video if you want a closer look at any specific game. The reason I test so many games is so that we can get a much more accurate average result from a wider selection of games, which allows us to draw a better conclusion. In other words, more data equals more better. Let's look at those average differences next. On average, over all 25 games tested, at 1080p, the RTX 5090 laptop GPU was only about 10% faster compared to the RTX 5080 laptop GPU. Some games saw basically no difference, while best case, the 5090 was up to 16% faster than the 5080. 1080p just isn't GPU intensive enough to get the most from these GPUs. So let's move on. Stepping up to 1440p, and the 5090 laptop was now almost 13% faster on average. So a bit more of a lead over the 5080 compared to 1080p, but still not that much of a performance improvement. Though to be fair, the gap at this resolution between the last gen 4080 and 4090 was just 11%. At 4K, the RTX 5090 laptop GPU was now almost 16% faster compared to the 5080. Best case, some games were up to 19% faster with the 5090, while worst case, there was only an 11% improvement. And again, for some context, last gen, the top-end 4090 laptop GPU was 15% faster in 25 games over the 4080. So we are seeing a similar difference on average this generation too. Here's how things look if we average the FPS from all 25 games together. This makes it easier to visually see the differences between both laptops. So then, is it worth paying more money to get an RTX 5090 gaming laptop? Or should you save some cash and get a 5080 instead? Prices of both will of course change over time, so check the links below the video for updates and to see if there are current sales. And if laptops with either of these GPUs do have a good sale, we'll definitely add them to the gaminglaptop.deals website. We update that every day to include all of the best sales. So make sure that you check it out regularly to save money on your next gaming laptop with that link below. At the time of recording in mid-June, the exact XMG Neo 16 that I've tested here with RTX 5080 graphics will set you back €3,344, while the higher-end RTX 5090 configuration is an extra €855. Or the way I like to think about it is almost 26% more money for the 5090. The same laptop chassis I've tested in the US from Electronics currently goes for $3,346, while the 5090 upgrade will set you back an extra $600, making the 5090 an 18% price increase in this case. Again, at 1440p, the most common resolution we're currently getting in mid to high-end gaming laptops, the 5090 was around 13% faster in our 25 game average, so 18% more money for a 13% FPS boost, plus the extra VRAM. It doesn't sound too bad if you consider that there are diminishing returns at the top of a product stack, where you usually start paying more to get less. But if we simply compare the cheapest laptops available with these GPUs at Best Buy, then the 5080 starts from $2,500 while the 5090 starts from $4,000, which is a massive 60% price increase for the 5090. Of course, there's more to the story than just performance here, as the cheaper 5080 MSI laptop simply doesn't have as many premium features. In terms of best value, if we're strictly comparing the laptop that I've used to test in this video, the 5090 laptop isn't actually that much more expensive for the extra FPS. But if you're only buying from Best Buy, the price difference between the cheapest 5080 and 5090 laptops means that 5080 ends up offering better value. Heck, the 5090 laptop I tested at Electronics is currently cheaper than any of Best Buy's 5090 laptops, but I would expect that to change over time. Ultimately, it comes back to the actual performance difference in games. Generally speaking, if the 5090 option costs 10 to 20% more than the 5080 option, and you've got the cash available, then yeah, the 5090 could be worth the extra money. But at the same time, the 5080 laptop still performs quite well and is a decent way of saving some money. It's still going to offer a great gaming experience. And given it's got 16 gigs of VRAM, that's probably not something you're going to have to worry too much about during the lifespan of these laptops. So for that reason, for most people, it's probably not worth spending the extra money to get the 5090. Unless you just really want the best performance possible from a gaming laptop, or you want the extra VRAM capacity for something else like AI work, or maybe the 5090's extra NVENC encoder. But if you want way more performance than what either of these laptops offer, check out this video next, where I've compared the 5090 laptop GPU against a 5090 desktop GPU, and the performance difference is massive. I'm honestly surprised that they can get away with calling both of them a 5090. Seriously, check this one out next.